So let's talk about what happened today in class, right? So you started out with the picture like this, whichever one you ended up getting. And you need to make your table. So we made a table. And one of the things that we noticed was that this shape right here on the next step happened 3 times, right? So we took our shape and we multiplied it by 3, and that's where we got our 9. Okay, and this ends up being a square. And then on the next shape, we take that square that we had and we get that 3 times. And now it ends up being a rectangle. And then we take that rectangle that we have and we put that 3 times and we get a big square. So we keep on going square, rectangle, square, rectangle, square, rectangle. But even more importantly, we keep on tripling it, right? We take it times 3. We take it times 3. Okay, this one we took it times 3. So now what I'm looking at is, well, okay, let me add on to this before we do that, is, then we looked at how could we write these using exponents. So we figured out that this is 3 to the 1, this is 3 squared, this is 3 cubed, and this is 3 to the 4th, right? And then hopefully you're noticing, or we talked about it in class, hopefully, that these match with the exponents, okay? So the step we're on matches with what exponent we have. So my question to you was, what happens if we go back to the 0? Okay, what do we get if we go back to 0? So that means, what if I went this direction with these? How would I do that? Well, if I go backwards, I'm not going to multiply by 3. I'm going to split it up into thirds. And I just end up with this guy right here, right? I just end up with that guy. And so, so I end up with just one block. And so I end up with one block. And if we follow that pattern, that means 3 to the 0 is 1. So then our question comes in, what is 4 to the 0? What is 10 to the 0? What is 356 to the 0? What are all those? And what's going to happen is all of them are going to end up being 1. Because if we keep on going back, if I go 4 to the 0, I'm starting with 4 blocks in a row, right? I split it into 4 parts, which is kind of already done by the blocks, and it's just one of those parts. And that happens with the 10. I have 10 blocks in a row, and it's just one of those blocks when I split it up into 10 groups. Okay, 356, I split up 356 parts, and I just end up with one block. I'm always going to end up with one block at that step. Okay, so no matter what I have, anything to the 0 power is going to be 1. Okay, what if I went some more, right? What if I went farther back? So what if I took this block? So this is that one block. I kind of zoomed in a little bit. Okay, and I would have to split it up into 3 parts. And we're just keeping this one part right here. Okay, what number is that? Well, first off, if I go back in steps, that means I'm going to have to go back to the negatives. And if I split it into 3 equal parts, I had one block split into 3 parts, and I'm only keeping one. So I end up with 1/3. And if I write that using exponents, that's 3 to the -1. So what if I went to the -2? That means I'm taking that little block that we have, that little sliver of a block that is 1/3, and I'm splitting it into 3. And now I'm just going to keep that one. Okay, so now I'm looking at -2. I know this is going to end up being 3 to the -2, but I've got to figure out what in the world do I have for a fraction? Well, if I want to know what I have for a fraction, I have to build the whole block. If I build the whole block, you're going to see that, I've split it into thirds and I've split it into thirds. I have 1/9. And if I was to do that again and go -3 and 3 to the -2, I'm out of my ability to draw it. So now my question is, what is my fraction going to be? If I split 1/9 into thirds, what am I going to get? I mean, if you think about it, each one of these blocks gets cut into 3 parts. So each one of my 9 blocks gets cut into 3 parts. And I'm only going to keep one part. And so I end up with 1/27. Now, do you see a connection here on your table? If we look at our table, if we look at this column right here, Do I see any connections with this? Or with each other? Because if I look, I've got 1/3 right here and 3 right here. And then I've got 1/9 right here and 9 right here. And what is the connection between these two? Okay, I've got that 9 on the bottom and the 9 regular, but I've also got -2 and 2. So if I look over here, I've got 3 squared and 3 to the -2. How do these relate? How can I put those together, right? How can I put those together? How can I make connections here? Because ultimately, I want to be able to ask you the question, what is x to the -5th? How could I rewrite that without a negative exponent? So that's what we're thinking about. How could I rewrite it without a negative exponent? Okay, let's look at this one. I've got 1/27 and I've got 27. So I've got 3 to the 3rd and I've got 3 to the negative. Uh-oh. I wrote that wrong originally, didn't I? That's -3 here. Sorry about that. Okay, I've got 3 to the 3rd and I've got 3 to the -3rd. Ooh, I could ask you this question. What does 3 to the -4? What do you think that says? Like, what would that answer be? 3 to the -4. Okay, so you have a rule in your book that has negative exponents. We're going to talk about that more tomorrow, but I want you to think about that a little bit before we do talk about that tomorrow. Okay, so we have 2 rules we talked about. What if you have a exponent of 0? And what if you have a negative exponent? Where are you going to write that? How are you going to simplify that?